Are you interested in learning more about realist evaluation? This is a new approach to understanding how and why different programs work in different contexts. This video will give you a brief overview of what the term realist evaluation means.
Traditional research based on the scientific method typically asks the question, does this work? This type of research is important, for example, when developing new medications. A realist evaluation, on the other hand, asks, what works, for whom, under what circumstances, and how? These questions, and a realist evaluation, might be more appropriate when assessing new initiatives, studying programs that seem to work but are not yet understood for whom or why, and for evaluating programs that have had mixed results to better understand why outcomes have differed.
Realist evaluation is based on the philosophy of realism and tries to objectively understand how an intervention works with recognition that interventions are complex and change over time.
Realism can be understood through the concepts of context, mechanism, and outcome, also known as CMO. The things that we can observe or experience are caused by deeper, mostly unobservable processes, which are termed mechanisms. For example, when you paddle a canoe in the water, you know it's moving, but you can't see the physics that govern buoyancy, water tension, friction, and so on. Contexts shape how mechanisms operate. So, if you take those same mechanisms that help you paddle a canoe, but instead try to paddle on a highway, the canoe will not get very far. Realist evaluation uses the term outcome to describe short, medium, and long-term changes, either intended or unintended, resulting from an intervention.
Now that you understand the concepts of CMO, we can dive into how to conduct a realist evaluation. As with paddling a canoe in the water versus on dry land, realist evaluation assumes that nothing works everywhere for everyone. In other words, context makes a big difference to program outcomes. As we mentioned, realist evaluation is asking what works, for whom, under what circumstances, and how. You might be thinking that this sounds good, but how is it actually done? We'll explain now.
Realist evaluation typically begins with an initial program theory. Based on your knowledge of the topic, for example through reviewing the literature and conducting interviews with people involved in a program, you make a series of hypotheses about how, why, and for whom the program will work. These hypotheses follow a simple formula that combines context, mechanism, and outcome. For example, in X context, Y mechanism will cause Z outcome. Context can be anything in the environment, from geography to demographics, biology, financial conditions, and so on. Mechanisms refer not to the interventions themselves, but rather the underlying forces that creates the change. Often, these are the ways of thinking in response to an offered resource or resources, and are triggered by contextual factors.
Let's take an example from Gilmore et al. Evaluating community health committees which have been implemented by NGOs in Uganda and Tanzania to build capacity in the field of maternal and child health. The researchers used preliminary qualitative interviews with members of the community health committees in order to create CMO hypotheses that they would go on to test throughout the evaluation process. In one of these hypotheses, the context was visible positive changes to health and behavior from women and children. The mechanisms believed to be shaped or triggered by that context were positive reinforcement from themselves or the community, motivation, and work satisfaction. The outcome was sustainability and commitment. Putting this all together, the CMO statement or hypothesis would be when community health committee members are able to recognize positive contributions they made to their communities It acts as positive reinforcement, which encourages motivation, continued work, and commitment to their duties.
Once you have developed CMO statements which explain your program's initial program theory, you will need to test that theory and set of hypotheses to see if they are correct. To do so, you will have to gather a wide variety of data. Typically, this data is both qualitative and quantitative and might include interviews, focus groups, collecting relevant documents, surveys of demographic data, and more. This data is analyzed to test the initial process theory and refine it. This process helps develop a better understanding of the mechanisms and how they work, the contextual factors that affect how mechanisms operate, and how outcomes are influenced by the contexts and mechanisms identified. This can be an iterative, multi-stage process where the theory is refined, more data is collected, which leads to further analysis and refinement, and so on until a middle-range theory is created that identifies common patterns within reality.
As you can see, this approach takes a significant investment of time, resources, and energy to do well. However, there can be great value in understanding how and why a particular program works and under what contexts. These results help us to allocate healthcare resources more efficiently, resulting in better service in current programs and creation of new programs to better serve the needs of all.
If you found this video interesting, please check out our other work by the McMaster Co-Design VP Hub. Follow us on our website, on Twitter, or on Facebook for updates from our team. Thanks for watching!